Hello and welcome. My name is Ben Schleifer, and I am the EDC Food Coordinator at the Center for Environmental Health. Today we will be talking about dishwashing and dish machines at K-12 schools across the country. Next slide. Center for Environmental Health is a nonprofit organization that works to protect people from toxic chemicals in the lived environment. So why are we talking about dishwashing and dish machines in schools? Well, that's because some of the disposable foodware used at many schools is toxic. Next slide, please. Expanded polystyrene foam, also known as styrofoam, has a host of health problems related to exposure, including cancer, reduced fertility, and birth defects. A new study shows that 1/3 of the people tested had detectable levels of polystyrene microplastics in their blood. While styrofoam is getting phased out in many areas, the replacement disposable also has a host of health problems. Many of these new compostable molded fiber products contain a class of chemical called per or polyfluorinated alkaline substances, also known as PFAS, or the forever chemical. These chemicals can migrate off of these foodware items and are associated with ADHD, delayed puberty, metabolic disorders, and many different cancers. Two recent studies have also shown that elevated PFAS in the blood is correlated to an increased likelihood of contracting COVID and having more severe symptoms. The take home is this: scientists have found that many single-use foodware products contain hazardous chemicals that have been linked to a variety of severe health complications. If it's our goal to serve healthy meals at school, we also need to think about the food that it's served on, or the foodware that it's served on as well. Next slide. CEH has worked with Clean Production Action to make a certification for disposable foodware called Green Screen Certified. This certification assures that the certified products do not contain 10,000 plus chemicals of concern at all points of their manufacturing. So if you're still needing to use disposables in your school kitchen, you should ask your supplier to make sure the products you purchase are green screen certified. Next slide, please. But if we're going to make a huge change to school foodware, CEH thinks it's best to make a change to the most upstream solution possible, namely reusable foodware in schools. Reusables are COVID safe, they're made from safe materials, they can save you money, they're more resilient to supply chain fluxes, and most importantly, teach youth good habits. We should not be giving students foodware items that they use anywhere from 20 minutes to even 20 seconds and then throw away, never to think about again. Next slide, please. The problem is there are many barriers to bringing reusables into school. One of the barriers is purchasing the items. Let me go ahead and just remove that barrier for you. Plastic-free restaurants will buy school reusable items to replace plastic or PFAS-laden disposables. They will pay up to $5 per item. This includes purchasing stainless steel items, for example. They have recently bought Berkeley Unified over $10,000 worth of stainless steel cups, bowls, and trays to replace their disposable items. You want to just buy some stainless steel sporks and wash them in your 3-sink system? Well, plastic-free restaurants will buy you those sporks, and then you never have to worry about those sport kits again. Next slide. Another barrier is washing the reusables. This is why CEH is actually hosting the dishwashing and dish machine in K-12 school webinar. We have Todd Bell from Frontier Energy explaining how to interface school kitchens with dish machines. We have Monica Campagna and Michael Bridges talking about case studies of Franklin Elementary, which inspired them to help author a bill, SB 1255, that, if passed, could get each school site in California up to $40,000 to install a dish machine. And lastly, we have Farhad Salehian talking about the mobile dish machine company DishJoy and how he hopes to interface with more K-12 schools to wash the dish for these school lunches. Afterwards, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A. Please type any questions that you have into the Q&A chat box for this webinar, even if it's as simple as how do I get DishJoy to come to our school? This webinar is being recorded and we will share out the slides in the video in a follow-up email. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. And Todd, if you're ready, take it away.
Ready as ever be. Thanks, Ben. Good afternoon, everybody, or I don't think anybody's in Hawaii, right? So But maybe if you are, fantastic. My name is Todd Bell. I work with Frontier Energy, and today in my segment, I'll be talking about basics of Dishroom energy, and it's a basic energy water survey. So it's really going to be for folks that do have existing dish rooms and are looking to get them up and running again as you move away from disposables to reusables. But I'll also be touching on some resources that'll help you spec out equipment if you've got to go back and maybe you ripped out a dish machine 30, 40 years ago and you got to put a new one in, or you're building out a new kitchen. So I'll be touching on a bunch of resources that'll help you specify energy and water efficient dish machines. Next slide. So just a big thanks to Ben for inviting us today. Really appreciate it. It looks like we're scrolling through quickly. Then I just want to say that this segment is supported by PG&E ratepayers today. My company, Frontier Energy, works very closely with the big California utility to promote energy efficiency to their customers. Just to give you a little history on myself, what I do, again, I'm a senior program manager here with Frontier Energy at the Food Service Technology Center. And one of my primary jobs is doing field research and energy audits, walking through kitchens, school kitchens, small mom and pop shops, your Googles and your Facebook kitchens, you name it. If it has a kitchen on the commercial food service side, I've probably been in it. Go on to the next slide if you can. Yeah, just some basic things we'll be discussing today, focus. Hopefully I don't get too sidetracked with anything, but I want to talk to you about the Frontier Energy Food Service Technology Center, how we promote energy and water efficiency in the commercial food service industry. Talk about the California National Dealer Instant Rebate Program, which helps to make it more feasible for folks to purchase more efficient commercial cooking equipment, refrigeration equipment, as well as warewashing equipment. We'll talk about what to look for during a dish room equipment survey. And then I've got some field study data to show what that real world dish room water and energy use is. Next slide. So like I said, Food Service Technology Center, Frontier Energy, we've been promoting energy efficiency in the commercial food service industry since 1986, located in the Bay Area, out in the beautiful suburb of San Ramon, California. Next slide. And really the Food Service Technology Center's foundation is appliance testing. We develop standardized test methods that are certified by ASTM to evaluate essentially the cooking performance of all sorts of different commercial food service equipment. These standardized tests make it possible to have comparable data. If you walked into any kitchen, you'll see a lot of silver boxes, but with the standardized test methods, you're able to determine, like in the instance of the two steamers that myself here back when I had a lot of hair on my head in 1999 on the right, and engineer Daniel Yap on the left, we're testing steamers. But because we're using standardized food product, red potatoes, standardized cooking set temperatures on both appliances, we're able to determine that the steamer that Daniel is testing, it costs about 5 times more to operate than the one that I'm testing. Again, it's this comparable data that allows us to make that informed purchasing decisions. Next slide. And ultimately, it's all that standardized testing that is the basis for the Energy Star standards, of which Frontier Energy, going way back to 2001, as it were, we were the ones that were essentially the technical horsepower behind that program, working with the EPA to get the program going for commercial food service. And it's now grown out to multiple categories. Just makes it really easy for you folks to specify energy and water efficient equipment. When you see the logo, you know that you're getting an energy efficient product. The standard, once we had that in place, we were able to establish very robust utility rebates. Today, it's in one of the larger and more successful programs is in the California EnergyWise rebate program. Next slide. And it's transitioned this year to a new instant rebate program that can be found on this website, californiaenergywise.com. Forward. So if we click on the rebate, You go to the next page would take you to the two programs which are available. The business rebate program on the right, that has been phased out in the state of California. The utilities, especially PG&E, have moved over to the instant rebate program, which is at the dealer level. And it's really designed to make it very easy for customers to receive the rebates without having to fill out any paperwork or go online and submit any information. Next slide. Next. So when we go over to the site, it's going to give you all the really important information that you need to understand the program, to find qualified dealers, to find where it is actually operating, so on and so forth. Go to the next slide. These are the different categories of equipment. Looks like we got a failure in a upload of a picture there, but we have not only on the gas side for cooking appliances, electric, you would have, of course, electric cooking appliances, but refrigeration equipment like ice machines, enriching refrigerators and freezers. But on the dual fuel, you'll notice we have dish machines in there. So for folks that need to go out and buy a new dish machine or replace an old dish machine, whatever it might be, know that we have these incentives for dishwashers. Next slide. The two categories in the program are under-counter machines as well as door-type machines. And door-type machines, very, very common in our school kitchens. So it's a great program to purchase through, because one, you're getting energy and water efficient dish machines by referring to this qualified list of products, as well as the rebate, instant rebate, that is taken out on your invoice when you purchase the equipment through a qualified dealer. Next slide. If you happen to be outside the state of California, the company that actually runs the entire program, actually we subcontract to them, is Energy Solutions. And I've included this slide as your reference. So if you happen to be in one of these states, know that there are other participating utilities that have a partnership or work with Energy Solutions to have this instant rebate program. Next slide. And so there's, as you can tell, there's, I've been with the center since 1998, but we've been around since 1986. And it's like, why is there such a big focus on the commercial food service industry? Because it's very, very energy intensive and very water intensive too. And next slide. If you think about it, it really makes sense. And I'll just let Ben just scroll through these really quick, but there's just all this equipment under one roof. You have the lighting, the HVAC, the exhaust system of the cooking appliances, and the cooking appliances themselves, refrigeration. You have the water heating, the ware washing system. It's just a virtual factory. And then, of course, on the water side, you have all these point sources, from the ware washing system itself to hand sinks, so on and so forth. So your physical footprint of a kitchen can be relatively small in relation to the facility as a whole, but its energy and water using impact can be very, very large. So it's worth paying attention to. And it, for me as an energy auditor, it makes my job pretty interesting. There's lots of stones to look under for energy and water saving opportunities. So let's move into the basics of a dish room survey and what that entails. And ultimately, the goal here is we're trying to collect as much information about the equipment to determine what the annual energy, or what that annual energy water usage is going to be, so that we can figure out what the water cost and the energy cost is going to be of that dish room, and be able to budget for that as we potentially could be moving to a more intensive operation in our dish room as we go to reusables. Or we're in the process, again, if you're speccing out new equipment for a new dish room, it's being able to do some comparison. So going into the next slide, fortunately, as you're gathering this data, the spec sheets on this equipment will typically have the rated water consumption. So dish machines, like a door type machine, you're looking at the gallons per rack. A conveyor machine is rated in gallons per hour. I'll touch on that in a second. I find it relatively easy to find historical data on very old machines. And I would throw out that if you happen to be in the state of California, and I'll reiterate this again. If you're in PG&E service territory, SoCal Gas, San Diego Gas and Electric, or SoCal Edison, that know that I or other energy auditors are here is to support you in doing that analysis. We're actually, paid by the utilities to support their customers. But anyway, just again, if you're going through, you're looking at collecting nameplate information, whether it's on the scrap collector or the dish machine. Next slide. But sometimes we've got to take some tools into the field as well, and just things that I'm carrying, in my tool bag when I do an energy audit. I use a flow rate bag. They're very cheap, about $1 online. You carry that. You can do a flow rate measurement, say on your pre-rinse sprayer that might be difficult to determine, what make and model it is. Or sometimes we have to improvise, right? We've got to maybe capture the water coming off of the dish machine during the wash cycle to figure out what its water consumption is. Also provided some of the calculations here for how you determine the flow rate of the equipment, and then factor that into when you're learning the hours of operation per day. Next slide. Cool. So key components, right? There's all kinds of stuff. It's like the more you think about this dish room, the more you realize, oh my gosh, there's just all sorts of equipment in there. So in pre-rinse and scrapping, we got pre-rinse sprayer. You could potentially have a scrapping, a scrapper, the disposal, a water trough. Then you have the dish machine itself. Most common are going to be the door type and conveyor, as well as then you have the water heater itself, right? There's your most, very commonly gas, standard efficiency, gas, high efficiency condensing type. And then also you could have an electric water heater as well. So this is, again, all these pieces of equipment you're going to be looking at. Next slide. Right, again, and then it's just a matter of getting a handle on how much water that piece of equipment is using. And so just going clockwise around here, we'll go, you have your disposal, typically 5 gallons per minute, potentially while it's running. Some are getting smarter these days with auto shut off features, so that's helpful. Pre-rinse sprayer, you can see, could be 1 to 5 gallons per minute. You got to have a water trough. Some are water efficient, they recirculate, and others are just once through. So it really depends on the design. You could even have a washdown sprayer in there that could potentially be getting used, but we really try to discourage the use of washdown sprayers for pre-rinse, given their very high water usage. And then a scrap collector, that could be up to 2 gallons per minute of water use, fresh water use when running. Next slide. So just to give you a real quick sense, and again, because the presentation is going to be shared with you today, you can go back and scrutinize these numbers. But this again gives you an idea of the depth of research we've done in these dish rooms to get a handle on the water use of these pre-rinse operations, because they can be such a major driver of water use in the dish room, and even have a greater impact in the dish machine itself. So there's dry scrapping, you could have it with a pre-rinse sprayer. And then it's kind of the sky's the limit. You could end up with 3 pre-rinse hoses and a rinse valve, scrapper with pre-rinse, pulpers, but it gives you an idea of just how many gallons per day is being used in hours of rinse per operation. And then what we're doing in our research is normalizing it to gallons per hour of rinse, right? So I'm saying I've got X number of dish machine rinse time, hours, and we'll normalize it to that hours of the actual rinse. So, but anyway, when we've gotten into this, the deeper into this research, the more shocking it becomes just how much water is being used in the dish room alone. Next slide. Just pre-rinse practice cautionary tales. So as you're firing up your dish rooms and getting your operations up and going again, or maybe you've got your operation going today, just things to think about, right? On the left, we've got a low flow sprayer only. On the right, we have a high flow sprayer, scrap collector, and a chemical dispenser. They're all water using devices. And what's the difference? Next slide. Let's take a look. So you can just see this tremendous difference in water consumption per day. One is maybe, I think that was about 100 and odd gallons per day versus over 3,000 gallons of hot water per day. And this was on the same, this was a tech campus, the same campus, same hours of operation, same service in their cafeterias, but just given the equipment package and how it was run, you had a tremendous difference in water consumption. Next slide. Franklin Elementary was another study we did, very simple setup, but this gives you an idea of just, even when you just have a couple pieces of equipment, how much water can be going down the drain, and figuring out, once you know this, right, how do you better manage and optimize that system? You know, it's a very relatively high flow sprayer in the hand on the left, and then you have this disposal, right, that's using 65 gallons. So there could be more water efficient options to look at. Next slide. Cool. So dish machines got high temperature, hot water sanitizing, you know, just the basic two differences. They seem to be, high temperature seem to be most common in our schools, right? Better sanitizing, more effective in sanitizing, not using chemicals like a low temp machine. That just gives you an idea of the range of water usage of the equipment for the door type, as well as I'm sorry, that should be conveyor type, not door type. That's an error there. I do apologize. So on a conveyor type dish machine, if you're a larger dish room, like a high school, for instance, you're really trying to calculate the water usage based on the actual washing time that's going on for that dish machine. Next slide. Again, just some field study data here, you know, looking at that range of equipment and what that water impact can be. You know, you have the stereos that are way out there in terms of the, and this again is your energy use and water use. So there is a very, very large range of equipment that can be driven by the make, model, vintage, maintenance, how it's operated. So there's just all sorts of factors that go into the water and energy use of that machine in your dish rooms. And then finally, if we need to go look at the water heater, because that's going to be the big driver of your energy use as well. And so determining what kind of water heater you have and factoring that into the formula. So, you know, perhaps you're doing an in-house determination, or you're using another consulting firm to do this analysis for you. This basic formula that you're using to determine what the energy use is going to be with that the connected water heater to that dish machine, to the dish room. Next slide. And so ultimately your output that you're kind of looking for is that total resource and op cost, right? I've actually, in this particular instance, factored in the hood fan energy as well. But for this particular dish room, you're looking at nearly $4,000 a year in terms of operating costs. Next slide. Yeah. And so just some tips and takes away, you know, maybe you can get action items for today or for coming to next week as you're working with the folks that are running these dish rooms. Have that really rigid startup and shutdown schedule for dish machines. You know, turning off the booster heater, scrapping the scrapping system and the exhaust hood when you don't need to have it on. Dry scrap as much as possible. Again, referring you back to that table that I shared earlier with all the different type of pre-rinse operation types and their consequent water measured water usage per our research. Fully load each dish rack. Use qualified dish machine maintenance companies to service the equipment, and train staff to identify small problems before they become big problems. Next slide. And there's just some quick resources for you with the links to the websites. So, and I know we're leaving questions for later, and to keep it on time, yeah, I'm gonna hand it back over.
Thank you, Todd, so much. If you all had one question you could ask Todd about a school kitchen you work with, go ahead and put that into the Q&A box for this webinar. And we are going to transition over to Monica and Michael. Monica and Michael, please take it away.
Welcome. Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Campagna, and I am the lead garden caretaker at Franklin Elementary in the Glendale Unified School District, where I was previously a parent volunteer with the PTA Green Lunchroom Committee and the Green Team lead. And I'm also a steering member of the Glendale Environmental Coalition. And I'm here joined today with Michael Bridges, who is a longtime Franklin PTA board member. So we're coming at this from a parent perspective. We both started this journey focused on increasing sustainability at Franklin, and then wanting to show how we can move it into other schools in our district. And now we are championing this dish machine funding bill that we hope will expand the opportunity that we had to other schools throughout California. So today we're going to talk about the process of how we got a dish machine donated to Franklin 3 years ago, the benefits that we found, including the cost savings and the waste reduction, the parent advocacy and industry help and the district support that we needed and got to make this possible. And finally, the evolution of this pilot program into SB 1255, which would provide up to $40,000 per cafeteria for K-12 public and charter schools and community colleges in California to install dish machines. So first I'll hand it over to Michael, who was instrumental in getting our dish machine donated, which really kicked off this whole process. Michael?
Thanks, Monica. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael. As Monica mentioned, I'm a longtime Franklin Elementary PTA board member. I've been on the board for about 7 years and expect to have 3 more at the school. So I approached the Hobart Corporation about donating a dish machine to our school as part of a pilot program for the school district. That's the Glendale Unified School District, just adjacent to Los Angeles. And the corporation, the Hobart Corporation, agreed to work with the Glendale Unified School District to create a study to evaluate the benefits and the costs of running a dish machine program using reusables as opposed to disposable single-use plastics in the cafeteria. I think we go to the next slide here. So Franklin Elementary School has approximately 600 students. We run 1 breakfast service, 3 snack services, and 3 lunch services daily. Franklin's cafeteria was throwing away approximately 111,000 compostable trays and the same number of cellophane wrapped plastic spork sets per year. When a dish machine was first proposed to the Glendale Unified School District, their immediate response was, no, that's not possible. It's too costly and it's too difficult to implement and so forth. Hobart Corporation does not typically donate dishwashers or other equipment, but after looking at the California market and realizing that there was a real lack of dish machines being used in California schools, they realized the benefits of conducting a study through a pilot program and using it to evaluate the long-term benefits of transitioning from disposables to reusables along with the dish machine. Back in 2018, the Hobart Corporation did a study, a survey, to be specific, with their field sales representatives to try to determine the percentage of schools in each state that have dish machines. The company estimated that for California, only 7% of schools have dish machines, which was the lowest in the country. Most states were in the 70 to 90% range. And the next closest to California was Florida, with around 20% of dish machines. So if you go to the next slide, receiving the dish machine removed approximately $25,000 of the high upfront cost for the district. And that was the main barrier to entry. So, you know, the school district, I have to say, they're not opposed to it in principle. They shared our idea of modeling sustainable practices for students and protecting the environment and so forth. But of course, they have a responsibility to sustain the schools themselves and not overspend their budget. So it was our role, it was our job to try to get one of these machines. And so when the Hobart Corporation donated the machine, the Glendale Unified School District agreed to take on the rest of the cost, the plumbing and electrical upgrades and kitchen refrigeration costs and so forth. So that includes things like reusable trays and silverware. And in the slide there, you can see, if you want to really look at the details, you can see what the costs were. But we'll keep moving forward and go to the next slide. So the Glendale Unified School District Facilities Department started by finding the spot where the old dishwasher was originally installed, as our district, like many in California, had removed all of their dishwashers in the 1980s. Now, it's our understanding that the primary reason for removing the dishwashers was to save water. Notwithstanding Todd's awesome figures about water usage, it is true that today's more energy efficient dish machines use considerably less water than dish machines in the past. So in fact, we've learned that the total annual cost for the water used by Franklin's dish machine setup is estimated at $144 per year. Now, the original plumbing and drains and electrical outlets were still there. However, the vent had been closed, and you don't need to go to that slide quite yet. I just want to say a couple things about what the facilities department did. The original plumbing and drains and electrical outlets were there, but the vent in the ceiling had been closed. And it was determined that in order to reopen that vent, that would require re-roofing, and that was really cost prohibitive. So that finding informed the specific model of dish machine that we requested from Hobart, which was a ventless machine. Ventless machine. The plumbing had to be updated and the power outlet had to be rewired. A stainless steel countertop that led to the dish machine had to be adapted a bit, and a refrigerator had to be relocated. So our dish machine at Franklin is state of the art. It heats to a very high temperature for complete sanitation, which, as it turns out, is quite a bonus. We started this project long before we were worried as much as we are right now about viruses. It's ventless and it runs its cycle in minutes, allowing our staff to quickly recycle the trays to be used again the same day. Now we can go to that next slide. So after a full year of cost analysis with actual expenses, the Glendale Unified School District can now show that even if they had purchased the dish machine, after 4 years, they would be saving about $7,000 annually, mostly from not having to purchase those single-use disposable items. Now, labor costs are always a big concern. Now, you can see in general that the annual savings is about $7,000 a year. Labor costs are a big concern. School districts don't want to hire extra staff, and they don't want to pay the existing staff more hours. Of course, everyone understands that. At Franklin, the 2 kitchen staff people are able to work the dishwashing machine into their regular routine, as long as the staff is well trained and remains consistent. And the bell schedule allows for that to happen. So I can kind of explain that in more detail, but it suffices to say it allows the staff enough time to roll the dirty trays and take the silverware tray into the kitchen, load the dish machine while the other staff member puts food on clean trays. So overall, it's been determined that a substantial amount of money is saved per year. You can go on to the next slide. I just wanted to add one last thing, that the janitorial staff was also able to adjust to the change with no additional labor costs. They were on board with the idea from the beginning, and they were part of all the meetings with the Unified School District and with the Hobart Corporation about the conversion. And this was really key to success. It wasn't one single thing that made this happen to our school. It was many single things acting together to make this happen. So, very simply, for instance, instead of emptying 8 trash cans around the cafeteria multiple times per day, they spend about the same amount of time emptying 2 organic waste containers and a liquids bucket and cleaning up the sorting area. They need to change bags in only one landfill waste bin in the cafeteria now. Finally, last thing, student volunteers earn volunteer hours for the school by helping out. We call them trash angels, and they supervise their peers in sorting waste, trash, and silverware, and help with the general cleanup after meals. Getting the principal, administration, other stakeholders involved in the day-to-day operation is key to ensuring that these programs are sustainable. I'm going to hand it back over to Monica.
Thanks, Michael. It was wonderful. And we can go to the next slide, please. So just to quickly go through some of the avoided costs. The cafeteria stock for single-use items right now, as you might know, sometimes there are stock shortages and these items are increasing in price. It's really hard to know when that's going to end, if it will ever end. And so having this reusables for Franklin has meant that this is one less thing our nutrition services director has to worry about for our school. Also, we have far fewer bag changes per day, which saves money on trash bags. And as Michael said, we used to throw away nearly 3,000 compostable fiber-based trays each week. Those trays take up a lot of space in the dumpster. And now that SB 1383 is kicking in and everyone's getting organics recycling pickups, that can be expensive. So of course, you don't want more pickups than you have to have. This will cut down on the number of pickups that you have to have. The custodians and I, because I take care of the campus, we don't have to pick up hundreds of cellophane spork wrappers from the plants that go out into the LA River near here. It's just so nice not to have so many of those everywhere. And most importantly, as Ben outlined earlier, we're not teaching our children from kinder to sixth grade, day in, day out, that it's okay to use something for a few minutes and toss it in the trash. It's just so nice to be reinforcing this concept that we use a plate, we eat on it, we wash it, and we use it again the next day. Slide, please. Few other key takeaways. Sites with easier bell schedules and smaller class sizes make good places to start. It's easiest to start with the elementary schools, as the younger students are much more adaptable to change. Then once the habits are formed, they can take those habits to their next campuses. It's simpler to pick sites where the eating area is centralized. We suggest, of course, that FASO directors look at the individual kitchens to see which are the easiest to upgrade and reconfigure. And it's particularly helpful to work with staff that are open and dedicated and make the whole process much easier, including the principals, custodial, and yard duty staff. Very important to have everyone on the team. And lastly, we found that initial parent volunteer support in the beginning is especially helpful. It's great to start these programs in a new school year or after a winter break, so they can have a fresh start and the parents can be there to help learn, the new systems. Slide, please. So I know a lot of folks that come to the webinar hoping to hear about SB 1255 and how it came to be and what it could mean for you. So I'm going to quickly go into that. After our experience at Franklin, Karen Nielsen and I, parents at Franklin, Karen was very instrumental in getting our pilot program off the ground as well. We saw the biggest barrier to having this program expand to other schools was the upfront cost. And we thought, this should be a funding grant available to schools throughout California to apply for. So we went ahead and wrote a proposal, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that process in a second, but essentially the grants will be for K-12 schools and community colleges, charter schools in California. Slide, please. So the funding will be for up to $25,000 for the dishwasher and its installation, and another $15,000 for additional upgrades needed in the kitchen, kitchen reconfiguration and the other equipment that you might need for the dishwasher to work. And then a total grant award is up to $40,000 per kitchen. We're not sure if there's going to be any caps placed on how much a district could apply for in 1 year. We don't see that limitation now, but this will eventually make its way to the appropriations committee where things like that will get decided. This funding doesn't compete, and this is so important, I know, to nutrition services directors. They have a lot of things falling apart in the kitchen. Dishwasher is not maybe their top priority. Sometimes they need to replace refrigerators. This will be from a separate stream of funding that will not compete with other needs that you might have in the kitchen. Very important. Senator Portantino has told us, Senator Portantino is the champion of this bill, he's the author. There is a substantial state budget line item to support kitchen upgrades this year, and this will be part of that, but in a separate stream that will just be focused on reducing waste. Next slide, please. So what are the next steps? I think I told you first off that Karen Nielsen and I drafted this proposal. We then took it to other waste advocates in our area, experts who contributed to the proposal. We took it to a meeting with the Glendale Environmental Steering Committee, was there with Senator Portantino, and we proposed that bill to the senator and asked if he would consider authoring it. He thought it was a wonderful idea, and he requested a proposal be sent to his legislative analyst. After reviewing the proposal, he did indeed decide to author the bill. And this week in the Senate Environmental Quality Committee, yet another senator has asked to sign on as a co-author, Ms. Gonzalez. GEC and Green Lunchroom are co-sponsors of the bill. Green Lunchroom is Karen Nielsen's baby, and I hope you guys will join us on Facebook in that group. This means we're in the advocacy process, so we're asking people to write letters of support. And as it moves through the various committees, we may be asking people to call in support of the bill. There's been no opposition thus far, and things are moving along really smoothly. If you would like to support, in our final slide, I'll have a link where you can go to submit a letter and a sample letter that you can use to help draft yours. Eventually, this will go to appropriations, and if it passes there, it will then, of course, move on to the state assembly and Senate, and if that passes, the governor signs the bill. And once that happens, then everyone at every K-12 public and charter school and community college in the state of California can apply for this funding. It looks like the program will be administered through the California Energy Commission, apparently because they have other school programs that they administer. So that's undetermined yet, but it might be that they are the ones who administer the program. And then lastly, you've already heard about plasticfreerestaurants.org. This bill would not cover the minimal cost of the reusable items themselves. So that is a source that you could go to for that line item. And final slide, please. Here we go. Here are some links. This will be also sent to you in an email, I think, with the summation of this webinar. For how you can reach me, I'm at contact@gec.eco. My name's Monica. And we hope you will look there at the fact sheet for SB 1255, the sample letter, and how you can submit your own support letters. I think it would be particularly great if nutrition service directors can chime in and let the legislators know that, this is something you would like to. And that's about it. And our last slide, this will be included in the recording. I just encourage everyone who's done a project at their school to try to get it on video so you can share it with others. We've done this, and this link will also be sent to you. And that's about it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I want to thank my partner in crime, Michael, for speaking with you all today too. And thank you to Ben for inviting us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica and Michael. If you all think you want to support this bill, put some plus signs into the chat. If you have some questions for Monica and Michael, go ahead and put that into the QA box. We are going to turn it over to Farhad. And Farhad, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, I am. Just starting the video right now. And if you all can see me, and we can pull up the DishJoy presentation part. There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Farhad Salehian. I'm the founder and CEO of DishJoy. Our website's just DISHJOY, dishjoy.com. And it's a pleasure to be with you in terms of schools as well, because really, I think one of the things that prompted me to start DishJoy was the realization that single-use disposables have a linear life cycle relative to what could be a very small circular, local life cycle for a reusable. So I, started this company DishJoy, and essentially we are able to wash off for schools that, let's say, don't have the resources or the space or really want to deal with it at all, the dishwashing on site. We can wash offsite, obviously, and deliver dishes and pick up like a linen or uniform service for your school. And I'll get into a little bit about that, obviously, but my inspiration I just wanted to share was really doing good while doing business and making it easy for people to do the right thing. Next slide, please. So our mission and vision is basically to replace disposable dishware everywhere and every day, starting with a focus on high usage environments. That's really key for us to be able to service a client, is that there needs to be enough volume to cover the costs, basically. Next slide, please. So we are the established market leader right now in providing dishware as a service, and kind of like software as a service. Since it's a recurring need, we provide dishware as a service. And if the volume is there as well, we would be open to even running a program on site for you. So that's an option as well. But mainly what we do is deliver the dishes and pick up at the same time, like again, a linen or uniform service. We were founded in 2015, as I mentioned. We are hoping to expand to every city in the US, major cities, within the next 5 years. We are launching in Los Angeles and Southern California soon, currently actually. And to date, we're washing, right now 50,000 items or so per day. And we are a certified diverse business as well. Next slide, please. So, it really, what it costs for a current setup, it really depends on a variety of factors, as some of the folks on this call have mentioned. I will give a hard number example in a few slides ahead, so just wait for that. But basically, the sharing economy of machines, the concept is, usually the larger the machine, the more expensive, that kind of thing. It's more efficient. And so we figured we could invest in that type of machinery and then have people share as needed, right, through the delivery system, or again, through coming in on site and managing your program for you on site. We try to make it very easy. We don't want to add any time to the already overwhelmed staff folks' time. So, we basically will deliver and pick up from wherever you'd like, and we'll, work with your team to make sure that it's all very smooth and easy for you. Next slide. So, again, this is the circular model that I was discussing versus the linear life cycle of a single-use disposable. And it's all very local, right? We're not going to be trucking dishes, 200 miles away or anything, which is incidentally minuscule and compared to how much disposable is on a truck, obviously. But, it's all local within, 60 miles max ever, but typically within 10 to 15 miles. And, like I said, we wash off site typically, and we deliver the dishes, whatever you need per your setup, and do this Monday through Friday every evening for typically, or when, whenever is good for the school. Next slide, please. So, I'm not going to read all of these necessarily because I do want to leave some time for folks, but it's a very sustainable solution. Obviously, it's an elevated experience to use real dishware. Our service is seamless and just runs in the background without you having to, worry about it. We've never missed a delivery in our 7 years, and we promise that we never will. And we have contingencies and backup plans and that kind of thing, as a business would in this scenario. We also have enormous dishwashing flexibility. We're not tied to proprietary dishware, so we can literally wash any kind of dishware item for you and deliver it. It's really convenient to use our service, as I mentioned, and as an alternative to disposables. And we're experts in what we do. We've been doing it for so long that we've accumulated that expertise. Next slide is an example of something that would, we could wash and deliver for your school. And then I'll go to the next slide, which is an example of a pilot that we are hoping to do. This is one school district, 3 sites, 3 schools for 2,000 students for 180 days for the school year. And you can see at the top, the DishJoy service for that would come out to $241,200. Purchase of the reusable trays, purchase of the reusable sporks, purchase of reusable cups, and this particular school happened to get their milk dispenser for free. So that's the new costs, right, for switching to our service. And then here we're talking about the savings and sort of subsidies and grant funding that can come into play to help with those costs. So there was a there's a $50,000 grant that this project may get. And so the subsidized cost of the reusable sporks and the reusable cups is something to consider. And then, of course, you have the savings of the single-use trays, single-use utensils, and single-use milk cartons. And so, wonderfully, you see that it's pretty much the same. In fact, there's a small bit of savings with this grant involved. So I just wanted to give a high-level example of what we can do for you as a company. And if you have any questions or anything else, here is my contact info. My email is simply Farhad, Farhad @dishjoy.com. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you all. And thank you for your leadership in this matter.
Yeah, thank you so much, Farhad. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Again, we're going to be sending out these slides later, but we have some questions in the Q&A. But if you have any questions for the panelists, we could always handle more questions in the Q&A. So Sue's going to pick out a few questions. Yeah, I do have one request. There will be a follow-up survey after this webinar. We would love for you to fill that out to know how we can do better. It will only take about 10 minutes to complete, and we'll try to put it in the chat before everyone leaves. But Sue, if you have a chance, are there any questions in the Q&A that we can maybe put to our panelists?
Yeah, there's quite a number of questions. So let's see. There is a question about whether, you work with food/nutrition department or facilities departments. They say, I imagine it includes both, but have you found more buy-in with one over the other? I don't know who's best to answer that one. Monica, do you want to try? Yeah.
Sure, it's both. It's absolutely both. And also in our case, the chief financial officer of the school district was very involved also. So it was getting around a table with our facilities support person, who was probably one of the bigger champions for us initially, and working with nutrition services director and our chief financial officer and the parent stakeholders, PTA stakeholders, our principal lead custodian as well. So we all were around a table together, but FASO director was absolutely critical. Yeah.
Thank you. And then it looks like there's a couple for Todd. So one question is, how big of a room is needed for dishwasher with 500 students? Although it looks like Todd might be typing in an answer now.
Yeah, actually, I was just typing on that. So I would refer to, as a point of reference, that picture in my presentation for the machine that I provided the analysis table. That is actually, yeah, that's a good example, because you're saying about 500 meals. That machine is designed to do 65 racks per hour, and about 16 trays would fit on a rack. So it's about 50 to 60 racks per day. It's a relatively small footprint in terms of the dish room size, but certainly workable if you have enough space and the labor to support that. We kind of figure it's about 1.5 persons to be moving the trays through. But again, all spaces are different. We like to have people have longer run out wash tables. So it gives you a place to push those racks out of the machine. But you can do quite a, dish rooms are notoriously very small, but it's the more space, the better. But you can see where it can effectively be done in a relatively small space.
And I'll say that's the size of Franklin. We have 600 kids, small room. And we had the Hobart, what was it, the AM15?
Yep, AM15, yeah. And so there are different besides the tables, there's also purpose to built or designed rack carts to be able to store and move them quickly out of that space to a storage area. So it's really key to invest in that support infrastructure.
Well, let's see if we can squeeze in a question about water usage before getting, because there's a couple questions about product loss. So there's a question, how do they track the water usage separate from the whole school's water usage? And a second piece is, did they track labor cost impacts and how?
So the water costs, we just based it on the, it's 0.74 gallons per rack, 24.42 gallons, 2 loads per day, breakfast and lunch. We did the calculations based on the manufacturer's information to come up with, the school district actually calculated that that water usage for the dish machine itself. Now the rinsing part, I don't know. And that's a good question. I'm not sure about that. And then as far as the staff time, that has been a little bit of an issue this year because of COVID. We had some people kind of coming in and out of the dish room that were new, and training was happening. For some reason, our school became a training site. So our lead kitchen person is very experienced and fast, but sometimes when she was working with a new person, things would slow down a little. And that's why we mentioned that sometimes we needed that extra half-hour time. But our recommendation to our school district is that we maybe don't be the training center anymore so that they can keep their team moving and wouldn't have that extra expense. But like I said, even our CFO said that it was a small expense, and it was definitely not more than the $7,000 a year we're saving. So just FYI, we're still working on that. It was a thing.
I know we're running close to the hour, but I wonder if we can squeeze in, because there's a couple questions related to product loss. There's one that's just says, what's their typical product loss rate in repurchasing a reusable ware? Somebody else is also asking, how do you prevent the trays and silverware from going in the trash? And another one is related to, at the high school level, they've had students monitor, to try to prevent the cutlery from getting thrown out, but the students are so mobile in high school, and how do you deal with that? I don't know who wants to try to take that.
I can try to field that one. Plastic Free Restaurant we'll do a kind of a reimbursement for lossage. You can get magnetic waste bin lids that can catch some of the stainless steel items that might end up in the waste. High schools are tricky. Like, let's just be for real. They're eating in different places. But I like to advocate for starting at the elementary level and then teaching the kids that this is standard practice, and then kind of moving up to high schoolers. But the high schoolers bring a nice the kind of activist energy to the table. And so, like, we've been exploring just having the high schoolers have their own set of utensils and just pocketing them and then bringing them every day to school. So those are kind of some of the ideas, but yeah, high schools are tricky. One more question. I know we should probably be very good about time, but maybe just one more question.
Well, can the presenter stay in a few more minutes? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we'll keep recording, and hopefully we can just try to squeeze in a couple. But yeah, does anybody else want to speak to, any kind of product loss rate or numbers?
I'm happy to. We've budgeted in that, when I said our costs now are $2,000 a year, that includes about $430 to replace trays and silverware. And I don't think they're going to need that for the trays. The trays don't go anywhere. Silverware, yeah, sometimes I have a couple, and I somehow came home with a couple. So it does happen. We've started, I think the principal's going to do a donate your extra silverware program for fun. So we might do that, but it's a negligible amount. I mean, it really is. But this is an elementary school.
And I've heard that, some schools are talking about trying to brand some of the different items to make it just clear that this is school property. So I don't know, that could be an idea too. All right, so there's another question about staffing. So it says limited funding for staffing, existing staff are already spread thin. How did you convince existing staff to take on this extra duty and be efficient at it? This is the biggest barrier for a particular question. Is that Monica?
I guess so. Okay, so our custodian was right there from the start. And his duties, he hasn't gotten more duties. They've just changed. They're just different. And actually, like I said in the presentation, having less bag changes. I mean, we're talking a lot less bag changes. He's now able to have time to deal with the things that SB 1383 requires. So for him, it was not a problem. Our nutrition services director should have a bonus. Frankly, she should have a bonus this year. And I think, we just need to support the staff and find out what it is that if they have concerns, they need to be listened to. And, I think right now we're in the process of doing that to hear about the training issue. And but at some point, it's setting expectations, and new staff are kind of revolving in. And if you've got this sort of set up from the start, it's a lot easier. It's harder when people have to change what they do. But I think explaining to them why and celebrating them and thanking them and making them part of the, getting the remarks of gratitude is really important. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question about how do I go about advocating to get a grant like this in Washington?
The reason I was giving the process was that I'm hoping some more feisty people on this webinar will go and do the same thing in their state. I'm happy to share our proposal with you, and then you can take it to your state senator or other representative, and maybe they will champion a bill for you in your state. The point of this whole thing was waste reduction, and it's such a huge impact and it made so much sense. It's pretty common sense. So please, yeah, Karen just put the email from myself and for her in the chat, and we're happy to share our materials. And yeah, hopefully it can move it forward in your state.
Great. There's a question for Todd. Does Frontier recommend purchasing or leasing dishwashers? What are the pros and cons? If a school does lease a dishwasher, does the company cover the install needs?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Now, granted, the size of the grant, if that's successful, then purchasing your own may be a good idea because it gives you a lot of control over what can be specified, especially like they did in the, as Michael was speaking to, the ventless machine, which is fantastic. But you definitely, if you own the machine, having it maintained or serviced by a qualified company is good. Have that Ecolab contract to manage your chemicals and stuff makes sense. If you are going to, the benefit of a leased machine though is it's alleviating you of that big upfront cost, and you're also getting that service contract. Whether it's Ecolab, Autochlor, Buy Right, whoever it is, and so they're handling the maintenance, they're handling the installation. So it alleviates you of a lot of the the work of getting that machine installed. Again, the benefit of if you're taking advantage of that, hopefully these grants to buy these machines, you can definitely be specifying a very efficient model. But that said, you definitely want to invest in a good maintenance contract with a qualified service company as well as a chemical company to help manage your chemical usage for that unit. So
should we just do one more, Ben, and then, because I feel like we're kind of running over, but and somebody just has a really basic question. They don't have dishwashers yet, but they would like to put them in the schools and get trays. Where do you suggest I start? Are there recommendations of consultants? Who wants to try that one? Monica, do you want to take that one again, or?
Maybe Michael has
Yeah, I don't really know, in terms of consultants to talk to about that. I mean, but certainly everyone's welcome to contact us at Franklin, and we'd be happy to talk about it. You know, I think the key thing is, you know, getting the complete and total buy-in and participation. And we had a lot of that with the district. You know, certainly when we first went to them, and wow, who knew that a dish machine was $25,000? I didn't know that. And there's a lot of other costs, installation and so forth. And the experience at the beginning was a little bit like, you know, okay, well, you know, you kids go bring back the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West, and I'll definitely help Dorothy get back to Kansas. And so we were, you know, we had to set off on a journey to try to get, you know, a machine. We either had to raise 25,000 some dollars, or we had to get it donated. But there never was it wasn't antagonistic at all. It was sort of, we want this to happen. We just don't have, we can't just give you guys 25,000 bucks to get a machine and then install it and everything. Turns out the Hobart Corporation, they wanted to do the installation because they wanted to make sure it was absolutely working right in order to, you know, conduct a pilot. They didn't want to, you know, have it show over usage of water or something like that, and then discover it's because it was installed improperly or something like that. So I'd say the main thing is getting everybody involved from the very beginning, everyone in lots of meetings, and that helped, that smoothed the way for us.
And if I can pipe in too, CEH has a toolkit that can help you begin that process. There's a planning guide that's pretty extensive, and getting that stakeholder meeting, just like Michael was talking about, is very important to make sure everyone's on the same page and that there's no, everyone's green light the project. The advice we usually give is start small. You don't have to bring in a dish machine day one. You can start by like saying, oh, we were giving the kids sport kits rather than offering it if they need it or not. Just trying that type of conversation, talking with the custodian staff, talking with the nutrition staff about making that little switch is enough to begin the process. And then you can be like, why do we even need these sport kits? Maybe we can use reusables. If we got reusable utensils, why not move on to trays? Like the beginning that conversation, you start small and then you can kind of build it up to where you need to go. Unfortunately, we're already 10 minutes over, and I just want to thank the panelists again. CH was very happy with all y'all's presentations, and so thank you all so much. We'll be sending a follow-up, the survey, as well as the slides and the recording if you all want to do it. So thank you so much, and there will be more webinars in the future around these types of topics. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ben. Thank
Oh,
you,
and please
Steve.
fill out the survey when you get it.